When we look at the work of Jemima Murphy's here at this exhibition in New York City, in Tribeca, it's really interesting as we see these dark kind of autumn colors. And so when we think about specific visual art terms, we can see that it's purple and green. So those would be the hues. And then we also see that there's some darker values. And so when we look at, areas that seem to be more of like a hunter green. As we see here, that would be a darker value. There's more black added to it compared to some lighter values in the green. So we have more of this light green resembling like a grass. And then we also see that happening with darker values in the purple being the hue, as well as lighter areas of that purple that start to become pink and a lighter value. And then we also see that chroma comes into play here. So that's if it's really bright compared to if it's really dark. So the yellow hue here, we see that in some areas that seem to be more like a mustardy color, so that there's less intensity to it. And then we also see areas where it's brighter, like a sunshine. So it's brighter in intensity, and that intensity is the chroma. So all going to ways to describe the palette. The other cool thing that we see here is that how the paint is applied. So we see these drips, right? So some areas we see drips, and some areas we can see the brush strokes. And those strips have levels of transparency that are happening, so you can see through to the canvas, the raw canvas behind, where other areas are much more opaque, so there's no light being transferred through the paint, and it's significantly thicker as well. So there's some literal texture that's happening. And then there's also transparency and opaque natures that are occurring. So just wanted to use this great painting here. It's also interesting is that it's a large composition as a whole, but it also is two canvases that we just saw. So we can look at one big painting, and it's large in scale, relatable to the body. And then as I walk closer in, we see it's actually the division here. So it's actually two separate canvases that are combining together to form the larger composition. So hope you guys can enjoy this and thinking about why vocabulary is important to us. I look at this painting and I see the large scale and relating to some sort of idea of maybe that it's flowers or I'm in nature, and my visceral sensations that I have with it. And then after I have that emotional response to it, I can go in and see like, okay, how is that being achieved? And I use specific vocabulary to see, okay, because it mimics nature and our human experience of having some thin areas, some drips, and some thick brush strokes, and that kind of comparison that creates a lot of visual movement. And I find that very stimulating as well.